It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, June heat records are smashed for the second day in a row. The Met Office extends a red alert warning for extreme heat into a third day, with temperatures expected to rise again tomorrow. Several hospitals in England have declared critical incidents as the health service suffers in the heat, with schools and transport networks also struggling to cope. Coming up, we'll hear from one of thousands of people in Kent who've been hit with a hosepipe ban. Also ahead, the Nottingham NHS Trust back in the spotlight as an investigation finds 8 bodies were discovered in a state of advanced deterioration after hospitals ran out of freezer space back in March. Plus, could Andy Burnham be Prime Minister in just over 3 weeks' time? We'll take a look at the Labour timetable for electing a new party leader. And disappointment, I'm afraid, for the Tartan Army as Scotland lose their final World Cup group game to Brazil. I'll be speaking to the fans who are still hoping to sneak through to the knockout stages. All that to come and a lot more here on the UK Tonight. More on those stories in a moment, but first to a developing story this evening out of Venezuela, where nearly 40,000 people have been reported missing after 2 earthquakes struck the north of the country. At least 188 people have been killed and more than 1,500 injured, and those are the numbers we have so far. A huge search and rescue operation is underway to look for more survivors. Now, this is the scene live in the capital, Caracas, at the moment, as rescuers try to look for survivors amongst the rubble of buildings. Their efforts, though, are being hampered by several aftershocks, as is normally the case. The South American country was struck shortly after 6 p.m. local time, and the 2 quakes hit an area surrounding the capital, Caracas. The United States Geological Service says the first magnitude 7.2 quake hit the northern part of Yaracuy state, which is around 190 miles west of the capital. It was then followed less than a minute later by an even bigger magnitude 7.5 tremor in the same region. Our international correspondent John Sparks has more on this, a warning that John's report now does contain footage showing the moment a building collapses.
It started gently, said one, and then it grew and grew. The earth ruptured in Venezuela by 2 powerful earthquakes. The gap between the first and second, just 39 seconds. Shocked and bewildered, the residents of the capital spill out onto the streets. This man is looking for his mother, Maria. Come here, he cries. It was a national holiday. Many were at home enjoying their lunch when flats, shacks, and tower blocks began to move and shake. This is the coastal strip in La Guaira on the Caribbean Sea, much of it reduced to rubble. The remains of a 4-star hotel now sits on top of the glass-fronted reception. Here, a resident films from his balcony, capturing the cries of despair and terror from this devastated coastal community. These quakes are the most powerful to hit the country in a century. And we see the violent energy they produced sweeping through the capital's international airport. It's shaking, says this man, a local politician. Look at the damage in the airport. See how everything has been ruined. And the terminal is cloaked in rubble and dust. And the main runway, now inoperable. The Venezuelan government declared a state of emergency.
y estamos en este momento declarando.
And in a televised address, acting President Delcy Rodriguez urged doctors and nurses to report immediately to work. Yet, in the immediate aftermath, local residents were forced to fend for themselves. And many look stunned. Others begin the search for friends and loved ones with their bare hands. This disaster follows years of economic and political turmoil in Venezuela, and the state is poorly placed to handle a crisis of this magnitude. Here, rescue workers and volunteers pull one dust-covered survivor from the ruins near Caracas, but they are taking a risk.
Volunteers can have the will to go and help, but they can also put themselves in danger. So it's a very tricky situation. I would say that considering the enormous, the size of the tragedy, the fact that there are a lot of police officers, National Guard trying to help, and a lot of volunteers, it shows that everyone now is trying to help.
The scale of the damage and the number of casualties remains unclear, but well over 100 have lost their lives, and the death toll is expected to rise sharply. John Sparks, Sky News.
Joining me now is Craig Watson, a British teacher who works in Venezuela and lives in the capital, Caracas. Craig, really glad to see you. Glad to see you're okay. But tell me what happened when the earthquake struck. What were you up to?
Well, rather embarrassing. I was just about to have a shower. And as you can imagine, what state of dress I was in. And I just got thrown to the floor. And I was just swung around like a rag doll, trying to get changed and trying to get myself safe. And as your reporter said, we had one earthquake and then the other straight after. Yeah. And the building was shaking. It was only one word I can say, it was absolutely bonkers.
Did you know straight away what it was?
Oh, yeah, because in October we had two minor earthquakes, but didn't last for very long. So I could see the water swimming in the toilet, and I knew what was coming. Yeah. Just very unfortunate timing for myself.
You live in an apartment. Were you high up, or were you quite close to the ground floor?
12th floor, and when I made my escape, there was a couple of older ladies who were stuck, so I helped one of them down. That's the bit where we got stuck at the first floor, and she was very nervous, couldn't really get her breath, so I just took her down the 11 floors with myself and just took our time, unfortunately. Well, thankfully she was fine, but obviously she was terrified. And unfortunately, my Spanish isn't very good, and her English isn't very good, but we made it together.
Yeah, I mean, vamos is the word you'd want to use, isn't it, really, Craig?
Yeah.
My Spanish
I have to use the word tranquilo because she was really getting herself worked up, but yeah.
Well, listen, all credit to you for having the presence of mind. I mean, plenty of people would just want to shoot out of that building. And I know you then stayed at the school where you're working, didn't you? Right. That was deemed to be a safer place, was it?
Absolutely. There's a thing called the Avalal, which is like a huge, huge mountain. And the houses up here are a lot better built. They're for the richer community. Yeah. So my idea was just to get to school as soon as we could and make ourselves safe.
And you have been back to your building, but not safe to go. Have you been back in? Have you gone? I know you on the way out you grabbed your passports and things like that, but have you been back in to get any stuff?
I did go very, very quickly today just to grab a few more essentials, like my Weetabix and my Barber jacket and a few things that I just needed and just to take with me. I was in and out in 2 minutes, but I won't be returning.
Craig, I covered the Haiti earthquake in 2010, and what I saw will stay with me forever. What kind of things have you seen around Caracas? Because it's it's just such a shock to the system. Suddenly, buildings that were there one day gone the next, and you know, sadly, that there are people trapped underneath.
It's just I cannot explain how lucky I am, and how grateful I have been, because the buildings around the back of me have utterly collapsed opposite the bars of the hotels that we visit for a few drinks. It's set the country back a couple of decades, unfortunately, I would say.
I mean, incredible time to be in Venezuela. Of course, you have the situation with Maduro being captured by the US and taken. Delcy Rodriguez is the acting president at the moment.
Correct.
To witness this, to survive this as well, is incredible. I know you want to talk to us because you want to let friends and family who know you back here know that you're safe.
Absolutely.
What's the plan now, Craig? Are you going to stay put? Are you going to carry on with the teaching job?
Well, as you know, the airports, the international airport is in a bad way. Allegedly, the domestic airports allegedly better. So we've still got a week left of term. I don't think we'll be back in. And I think, unfortunately, this might be the end of my time in Venezuela. And it could be difficult to leave, but it's going to be difficult to come back as well.
Yeah, look, entirely understandable that you would want to. And that's the heart-rending thing, isn't it? You can do that, but a lot of Venezuelans haven't got the choice.
It's a conversation I've had with a lot of my friends today. You know, we can up and leave in a suitcase. This is their life, and it is heartbreaking. And, you know, it is devastating.
Listen, Craig, in the meantime, of course, school, that's going to be the last thing on a lot of people's minds. They just want to survive and make sure that their loved ones are okay. But while you are there, are you reaching out to students? Are you finding out if they're okay? What's the latest on that?
I emailed all my class parents today, just said that I hope they're all okay. We were on a school trip on Tuesday, so I sent them some photos from that to try and keep their morale up. But, yeah, as you know, it's probably difficult.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
What is pretty remarkable is the connection we've got to you and the fact that you can send emails. I mean, look, while earthquakes happen, it's quite a sizable place, Venezuela. So some of the infrastructure is relatively okay for the time being, is it?
Absolutely, yeah. I was very surprised. They've got running water, the electricity, the Wi-Fi. You know, we're in a gated community at the school, so we're very lucky.
And you're just going to stay put there now for the time being until you decide that you might try and get out. I have to ask, Craig, what kind of support have you had from the British authorities, the British consulate? And you must be in touch with other Brits in Caracas as well. Yeah,
the majority of the British here work for the school already, and there's obviously a few others who are probably in gas and oil. We've had no contact directly from them. So hopefully they'll be reaching out soon and maybe sorting something out, because I've got flights booked for next weekend to come back, but whether they'll happen or not, I couldn't tell you.
Are you frustrated by what sounds like, you know, pretty minimal action?
I'll be honest with you right now, Matt, I'm just relieved, and things will work out for the best either way. You know, I'd like a bit more action, obviously, but I understand right now I'm not their main concern.
Craig, look, from start to finish, very selfless attitude, is starting with, you know, saving that old lady and also what you just said there. We're really grateful that you took the time to speak to us, especially given everything you've been through and what's going on still around you. And we're just glad you're safe. Thanks so much, Craig.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Take care.
You too. Well, next, and closer to home, the UK record for the hottest ever June day has been broken for a second day in a row, with temperatures reaching 36.7 Celsius, and that was in Somerset this afternoon. The extreme weather has left transport infrastructure struggling. Thousands of schools have once again had to close. Meanwhile, several hospitals and ambulance services in England have declared critical incidents. This all comes as a red weather warning for extreme heat for London and part of the southeast of England has been extended into tomorrow, the first time it's been issued for 3 consecutive days. Sky's Oliver Whitfield-Mircic has the latest.
The temperature records just keep on falling while the mercury rises higher. And for the first time ever, an extreme red heat warning has been issued for 3 consecutive days. It's forced multiple NHS trusts in England to declare critical incidents, while train passengers are again being urged not to travel unless it's essential. Most of us still have to head into work, though. At this dry cleaners in Croydon, it's in excess of 33 degrees Celsius, according to our thermometer. Owner Dennis Sengel says he can't escape the steamy conditions because customers have got pressing needs.
We have to finish the job. It doesn't matter how hot, because the people waiting their garments and other things, and basically we have a responsible, we have to finish on time.
So you're not closing?
Never ever.
As things stand, there is no maximum workplace temperature.
Yeah, it's very hard to work in hot temperature.
Some trade unions, including Unison and the TUC, want the government to introduce legislation so employees can get some respite from the record-breaking heat. It's a move that double-decker bus driver Nathan would certainly welcome. At 10 o'clock in the morning, his driver's cab is already hitting 30 degrees.
You can't breathe. You go to a red light, you feel like you're dozing off because it's so hot. Not because you're tired or you haven't slept, but just because of the humidity. You've got so many lives in your hands. You want to be driving as safe as possible, and if you're dizzy, tired, lackadaisical, that's not going to be safe for anyone.
With more than 1,000 schools and nurseries having closed their doors due to the extreme heat, the National Education Union has called on the government to also make air conditioning mandatory. But as man-made climate change makes heat waves more common, the Prime Minister says employers should use common sense to keep sweltering workers safe.
We're having COBRA meetings at the official level to monitor what's going on, give the appropriate advice, but obviously it falls to me and others to say take care, be sensible with precautions, and schools are going to have to decide, and they are deciding. Most of them finishing a little bit early, or many of them, but they will gauge that according to their local conditions.
Even safeguards for sweets are also being taken, with reflective silver bubble wrap being used to stop the chocolate bars from melting in South London, a costly lesson previously learned.
We had like at least 400 to 500 pounds worth of chocolates were thrown away. Yeah. And for a small shopkeeper, it is a big money.
From baristas enduring scalding hot coffee machines to firefighters who are used to feeling scorched, for many workers, there is no reprieve from this heat, and with the government seemingly not committed to introducing a legal limit, the status quo looks set to continue. Oliver Whitfield-Meerchich, Sky News, Croydon.
Well, let's go live now to Victoria train station in London to speak to our correspondent Barnaby Papadopoulos, who we always send out when it's absolutely scorching hot, don't we, Barnaby? What's the situation there? Because it's transport as well as schools and hospitals that's really been affected.
Yeah, you do a little bit, Matt, but it is now getting quite a lot cooler here. Now we're getting in to the evening. Still quite warm, though. And, of course, the biggest impact, as you said, and as we've just heard in Ollie's report from hot weather, is the disruption it causes to our public services, travel among them. I've just had a look in Victoria Station here, and I've seen multiple cancellations on the boards, which tells you when the trains are running. Network Rail is warning people not to travel unless absolutely necessary, and individual operators are limiting their services to cross-country, LNER, Avanti West Coast, South Western, all of them running limited services into tomorrow. Of course, one of the biggest impacts of heat when it comes to the railways is it can actually buckle the train tracks, and we've seen that in the Midlands. There are no services, for example, between Leamington Spa and Nuneaton at the moment because of that. And we're also seeing disruption elsewhere, multiple school closures today, and also disruption on our roads. The RAC said that they had the call-outs to breakdowns yesterday were 5 times higher than they would be usually. So disruption right across the travel sector. But I think where this is perhaps most worrying is the impact this extreme heat is having on the health service. We had a statement from the London Ambulance Service earlier today. It really is quite something. It's that they had the highest number of Category 1 calls in history yesterday. Those are the calls to the most life-threatening situations. I've got a statement from their chief executive that I'm just going to read you now. He said, "We have seen the highest number of life-threatening emergencies in our history, driven by the extreme heat across London. Our crews are working very hard in challenging conditions to care for patients. Please help them to help you by taking care of yourself and others. Stay out of the sun and keep hydrated." Along with that, we've seen critical incidents declared at hospitals in Southampton, in Portsmouth, in Norwich. Those are mainly due to cooling units failing that cool down things like MRI machines. And also South Central Ambulance Service, that covers Berkshire, Hampshire, Oxfordshire. They've also declared a critical incident, in part due to an increased number of call-outs. So quite a lot of disruption, and with that red weather warning, at least for London, extended until tomorrow. Don't expect that disruption to end anytime soon. And I think all of this really starts to raise questions for policy makers, because if these heat waves are going to become more common, questions are going to be asked about how resilient our national infrastructure really is to deal with them.
Yes, absolutely, Barnaby. Thank you very much indeed. We're going to get more now on the impact the heat is having on the health service. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by Dr. Hilary Williams, the Clinical Vice President from the Royal College of Physicians. Hilary, it's really great to see you, but I know this is an incredibly testing time for you and a lot of your colleagues, and it's one that they have been warning about, or at least a lot of them have, for quite a while already.
Yeah, so we did a survey of our staff and all our members, and 75% of those people said they didn't think we were adequately prepared. So, and I think it just has to the background is that every time we visit hospitals, every time we hear about it, we know the infrastructure's already under huge pressure. And then you add extreme heat on, and I think it's this extreme continuous heat that's proved particularly challenging this time. So, yeah, it is this kind of resilience of the infrastructure. So many hospitals are tired, worn out. You add on this pressure and they're just not coping. It's very clear, isn't it?
Absolutely. But there are specifics to the health service that aren't affecting other workplaces, which I'm keen to hear more about. For example, you can't really use fans. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so there's a number of reasons for that. Firstly, infection control, which always sounds a bit of a sort of dull term. But actually, when you've got patients like mine who have chemotherapy or in haematology, they're particularly susceptible to infection. And any patient in hospital is a little bit frailer. So using a fan can actually transmit infection. You know, all this stuff has to be regulation grade. Also, I think one of the lessons we learned from COVID is that when you suddenly start ramping up your systems, and you've talked about the coolers, the kind of infrastructure, electricity infrastructure just can't cope with being pushed and pushed and pushed. And, you know, we're more and more digital, aren't we? We're more and more reliant on scanners, on, radiotherapy. All those big machinery that provide brilliant care are just all reliant on, they have to work at a very specific temperature. They wouldn't be accurate if they got too hot as well. So, it's not a simple thing with the NHS ever, is it?
Never is, and you're the expert. The medicine situation as well is fascinating. There are some medicines I know you've talked about that increase the chances of people being dehydrated, and therefore that needs to be looked at too.
I mean, I think about, 70% of our population is probably got high blood pressure by the time they're in their 70s. And those medications, if you're feeling a bit dehydrated, just make you more so. And then, the population, we've got lots of people with heart disease, kidney disease, and your body's just less good at controlling its own fluid balance. So, all those things just add to the stress. And, and it's not simple. You can't just say, oh, everyone on heart medication, just stop it now, because you've got to look at each individual person. So, yeah. And then even keeping your own drugs cool at home, people should be putting things in fridges. They won't necessarily work at very high temperatures. And then you compound that with the amount of drugs we use in hospitals that depend on refrigeration as well. So, yeah, pharmacy supplies. I know our pharmacists will be working really hard behind the scenes to get that right for people.
And Hilary, whether they're physicians or pharmacists or nurses or anybody else who works in the health service, I know so many of them do it because it's their vocation. They feel the calling, they want to help people. But when you have days like these, and you have terrible winters too, and there's barely a break between the two of them, it must be taking a terrible toll on morale at a time when the NHS really needs its people.
Yeah, I mean, I heard yesterday, one of my colleagues said, sorry, I can't join that meeting. And she said, I just had to support someone who was just, one of our trainees was just struggling too much. And I think they haven't slept well, they're new to the system. And I think what often happens is that we power ourselves up, we get through these really hot days, these challenges, and then it kind of impacts later down the line. And then that's when we see the very high levels of burnout. And I think the last NHS surveys tell us, we hear all the time, I was speaking to some doctors this week that had to take time off work because they're on the acute medical wards. They just couldn't look after the people the way they wanted to. And that's when you can't carry on your job.
Because looking at the bigger picture, we hear, especially trainee doctors looking abroad for work, And you look at hospitals in far hotter places than ours, and they seem to cope absolutely fine. And look, I know this is exceptional for June, but there may well be hotter days ahead in July and August. And certainly with climate change happening, there are hotter days ahead as a given. So it makes you wonder what needs to be done to stop this getting as bad next time.
Yeah, and I think the worry is that it really is this resilient infrastructure, and that's not a quick fix. What we've done in the NHS kind of buildings, we kind of, I mean, I've seen it so many times, we convert a ward into a bathroom, then back into a ward, and then you add another thing in on the car park, and then you add another layer on the building. And that's just not what is going to be adequate when we've got these extreme heat events. And the other thing that tends to happen is that because we want more space for patients, you often lose the space for staff to rest. So we go around hospitals, we see that particularly the resident doctors that are there overnight, they often don't have anywhere to sit down, get a cold drink, a hot drink in winter, and that is again, just leading to staff burnout. So everyone wants to do their best for their patients, but they need that little bit of time back as well, where they can get away from the wards, chill down. We've lost so many of those spaces, and some of the new hospitals aren't even being built with proper spaces for staff as well, which is really shameful.
Understandably. Hilary, we're so grateful for your time, and I'm sure we're not nearly as grateful as your patients are for your efforts as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Well, next in Derbyshire, firefighters are tackling a wildfire that's been ablaze now for nearly 24 hours. Derbyshire Fire Service says it's affecting nearly 500 square metres of Tintwistle Moor in Glossop. 6 fire engines are there, as well as a helicopter. Fire Service is asking people to act responsibly and say that the slightest spark from a campfire or a barbecue or a cigarette could lead to an incident, a major one like this. Still to come here on the UK Tonight. Much more on the heatwave as South East Water announces a hosepipe ban in Kent. Yes, that's the same county where they've suffered terribly with their water supplies over the past few months. I'll be speaking to a campaign group who are just calling for better water supply. Also ahead, 8 bodies have been found in a state of what's been described as advanced deterioration at scandal-hit NHS Trust in Nottingham. And also, Andy Burnham could be the new Prime Minister as soon as 22 days' time.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
Perfect. Let's bring you some breaking news.
Being a Sky News presenter. I began by asking,
thank you so much,
trusting us to tell her story. The battle for number 10. Sky News has been given exclusive access. Let me give you a sneak peek. It was the day those present would never forget. Why did you decide to open up and tell your story?
South East Water has announced a temporary hosepipe ban for people living in Kent. It is the latest in a string of supply issues from the water company. During the last heatwave in May, thousands were left without drinking water across the area. Let's speak now to Jonathan Hawker from the Dry Wells Action Group. Jonathan, great to see you. Look, I was going to say in Kent it never rains, it pours, but this is the absolute opposite, isn't it? Just endless issues for you all with your water supply.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone in Kent is particularly surprised with all of this hot weather that Ollie, was talking about in his reports, that everyone is encountering at the moment, that a hosepipe ban would be imposed, except for South East Water, of course, because less than a month ago, they wrote on their social media account, "We're not planning to implement a hosepipe ban this summer. Thanks to the winter rainfall, our reservoir and underground water sources are back to normal levels. You can enjoy your garden free of any hosepipe restrictions this summer." And that's the problem, really. We can live with a hosepipe ban. We can not water the garden or wash the car, but we can't live without drinking water. And the problem here is that just as you can't rely on them to, stick to their promise that there will be no hosepipe ban, you can't rely on them to deliver. And that's the problem.
I guess looking at where Kent is in the country, southeast corner, it feels like it's one of the warmest and driest parts of the UK. So it's inevitable that if there are going to be hosepipe bans, and there may well be in the rest of the country at some point this summer, but if it's going to start, it's going to start there, isn't it?
Absolutely. Although there are other water companies serving parts of the garden.
Well, I think we've lost Jonathan, I'm afraid. He was going to say the Garden of England, because that's what Kent is called, although judging by what he said, it's a pretty dry garden at the moment. We'll try and get Jonathan back. While we do, I'm going to tell you what South East Water has said to us about this. Their statement says our absolute priority has to be making sure there is always enough water for everyone's essential daily needs like hygiene, drinking and cooking, that we protect our vulnerable customers. To safeguard that shared supply and prevent any homes from facing a sudden loss of water, we sadly need to ask our communities to not use their hose pipes immediately. We are deeply sorry, they say, for the disruption this causes, and we are incredibly grateful to everyone helping us protect Kent's water. Let's go back to Jonathan, because I think we've got him back. You're about to say the Garden of England, Jonathan. These puns are coming thick and fast, but it's going to be a pretty dry garden for the foreseeable.
Well, the puns are flowing faster than the water is the trees. Our issue really is that, we can't rely on this water company.
Yeah.
It's filled my hometown of Tunbridge Wells, with several weeks without water over the winter. It recently failed communities in the eastern part of Kent. And now they're basically saying in their communication to me last night about the imposition of this ban, that every treatment works across the county is maxed out, and that despite that, water levels are dropping faster than they can fill it. And yet this is a water company that says that it can meet not just only the needs of existing homes, but all of the thousands of developments, homes that are being enforced on communities across the southeast. And we believe that's a ridiculous situation, and that common sense, should prevail here, that there should be a moratorium on new housing developments in impacted communities until South East Water sorts out its act and is able to deliver on its sole mission to supply us with water.
There have been changes at the top. The chief exec has fairly recently gone as well. But what do you make of Andy Burnham, who may well be the next Prime Minister in just a touch over 3 weeks, already talking about taking water companies back into public ownership? Of course, it affects South Eastern Water. We know that Thames Water is really struggling financially, basically bankrupt. What do you make of it?
Look, I'm old enough to remember Margaret Thatcher when she, privatised, the water industry. She said there's no money within government to support the infrastructure needs of this very, very complex service delivery. And that's why the private sector was supposed to invest vast amounts of money in ensuring that we have a water utility that's fit for purpose. Where we are today is we have a privatised monopoly that can't deliver. So if Andy Burnham wants to take this on and ensure that homes across Kent have a normal water supply like everywhere else in the country, which don't seem to have the same problems that we have in the Southeast Water Delivery area, I would say bring it on.
Jonathan, I'm really glad you could join us. Thank you so much for talking. Just looking at the forecast, certainly beyond tomorrow, looks like in your part of the world there is going to be a bit of rain, so hopefully a welcome respite for the short term. Thanks very much again.
Thanks, Matt.
Still to come here on the UK Tonight, the Nottingham NHS Trust that's back in the spotlight as an investigation finds 8 bodies were discovered in a state of advanced deterioration after hospitals ran out of freezer space back in March.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped. Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay.
Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
People that pod together, they have a little hive brain going on.
They've not had a good week.
I've had a good week. There's a teaser there, a teaser.
OK, nothing to see here, drama over.
Full stop.
Anyway, we'll get to that.
She will be mortified.
She's the first female chancellor.
I popped upstairs, made myself a cheese sandwich, and now I'm with you.
Analyse has come dressed in the magenta of electoral dysfunction. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Yesterday, we reported from Nottingham, where a damning report found that more than 500 mothers and babies suffered avoidable harm or died under the care of an NHS trust due to failures at the organisation. Well, today, the same NHS trust is back in the spotlight after inspectors said that 8 bodies were found in a state of advanced deterioration in a mortuary after hospitals ran out of freezer space. A warning, Shaman Freeman-Powell's report now contains details that you may find distressing.
I think it's an emotional roller coaster. It's been physically and mentally exhausting. It's brought some peace that we've got answers, but then we've still a way to go until we get justice for our daughter and for other families.
Their daughter Harriet was stillborn in 2016, and their fight for answers is credited for becoming the catalyst for the largest investigation into maternity services. Sarah and Jack's experience was a signature case, not only because of the failures in Harriet's care, but also for the lack of dignity in her death. Her body was allowed to badly decompose whilst in the care of the trust.
I feel like they first and last walk we took her on was in her tiny white coffin, and we just presumed she'd be perfect in there. And to find out that she had been let to decompose, there are no words that will describe that feeling. And I feel like they've stolen that moment of peace from me.
The report found other examples where dignity in death was denied. In one case, the wrong baby was released to a funeral director, and in another, an early gestation baby was disposed of as clinical waste. When the Trust learned of these findings, it commissioned its own review. It was concerns raised by Donna Ockenden that led to this investigation. And when the Human Tissue Authority carried out an inspection in March, it led to more disturbing discoveries. It found 8 badly decomposed bodies caused by a lack of freezer space. It also found insufficient identity checks had increased the risks of the wrong bodies being released to families.
I'm concerned that a hospital that has been under such scrutiny has had such a damning report just in the last few weeks.
In a statement, the Trust says, whilst we have met the majority of the HTA standards, we know that there are some very important areas we need to change to ensure our patients and families have confidence that we care for their deceased loved ones in a manner which is dignified and respectful. The HTA acknowledged that changes had been made following its inspection in March, and Ockenden also credited the Trust for its commitment. But it will likely take more to convince families at the heart of the review and across the city to trust in its care. Siobhan Freeman-Powell, Sky News, Nottingham.
It was only the start of this week that Keir Starmer said he was going to stand down, but Andy Burnham could become the next Prime Minister in just 22 days' time. That's if nobody stands against him for the Labour leadership. The party's ruling body met today to set out the timeline. Here's our political correspondent, Rob Powell.
So, how will the Labour Party pick their new leader and our new Prime Minister? Well, nominations open on July the 9th. People can put their names forward at that point. They'll need support from 20% of the Labour grouping in the Commons. That means at least 81 MPs. You'll then get hustings on July the 13th, where members will get to question those who have said they'll run. The window for nominations closes 2 days later, on the 15th. And then at that point, trade unions that are affiliated to Labour and other organisations linked to the party too, they'll put in their nominations. Each candidate will need the backing of 3 of these organisations, and that has to include at least 2 unions. Now, if Andy Burnham is the only person who puts his name forward and gets the backing he needs, then he'll automatically become leader and Prime Minister. That'll be announced on July the 17th, just as MPs break for the summer recess. If someone else runs, though, and gets the required nominations, there'll be a contest. And we'll have a summer of debates and hustings with constituency Labour parties also putting in their nominations. Then the eventual winner will be announced at the end of August, the 29th, before Parliament returns in September. For now, Andy Burnham is the only person who has said he will stand. If no one else enters the race, it's likely he'll be Prime Minister in a matter of weeks.
Still to come here on the UK Tonight. Disappointment for Scotland as they lost 3-0 in the World Cup to Brazil. But can they still somehow get through to the knockout round? I'll be speaking to one superfan who's still in Florida. And also how, after a tough day for England's cricketers, there is hope yet in the decisive third test against the Kiwis.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay.
Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
People that pod together, they have a little hive brain going on.
They've not had a good week.
I've had a good week. There's a teaser there, a teaser.
OK, nothing to see here. Drama over.
Full stop.
Anyway, we'll get to that.
She will be mortified.
She's the first female chancellor.
I popped upstairs, made myself a cheese sandwich, and now I'm with you.
Analyse has come dressed in the magenta of electoral dysfunction. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, one person has been killed and a child is in hospital with critical injuries after a train hit a car at a level crossing. British Transport Police said the incident happened shortly before 9 this morning. Katie Barnfield has the latest.
Well, it's been a really busy operation here in Horton and Lancashire after that serious accident on the level crossing this morning just behind me. You can see there are still several fire and rescue crews, Network Rail investigation teams and also police teams here still responding to that incident. What we know from British Transport Police so far is that a train hit a car on this level crossing around 10 to 9 this morning. There were 2 people inside the car at the time, an adult and a child. The adult sadly died here at the scene, and the child has been left with life-threatening injuries and has been taken to Alder Hey Children's Hospital in Liverpool for treatment. 2 air ambulances were sent here after the accident. Now we've now heard from Northern, who are the train company, who've confirmed that it was one of their trains that was involved in this accident. They've told us we can confirm the 7:51 a.m. Colne to Preston service was involved in a collision with a car at a level crossing in Horton this morning. They say our thoughts are with the person who sadly died in the collision, and the other passenger in the car, of course, we now know was a child who's been taken to hospital. They say we're now working to support the emergency services, Network Rail and the Rail Accident Investigation Branch, and will cooperate fully with the investigation into what happened. Now, what that investigation will be trying to establish is exactly how this was able to happen. You can see that it is a barriered crossing here. We don't know yet whether those barriers and the signals were working correctly or whether they weren't, or whether they were and the car simply drove through. Now, we understand the car was hit at enough speed that it was actually pushed some distance down the tracks here. Now, police say there were no other passengers in the car at the time. They also haven't had any other reported injuries from the passengers who were on the train. Of course, that was a busy commuter service that was involved in this. Services between Preston and Blackburn on the railways here have been suspended while this operation continues on what was a very serious incident. So just to recap, 1 adult has died here and a child has been left fighting for their life in hospital.
That is a terrible story. Time to talk about the sport now. Glad to say Jess is here. Jess, it's good to see you. Ben Stokes back after his nightclubbing escapades, and they kind of need him, don't they? Because in the first test against New Zealand, England did really great. The second test didn't go as planned, so this one, it's pretty important.
It is very important, and England didn't get off to the best of starts. It's been described as torrid, brutal, even demoralising for England, because New Zealand, Matt, were absolutely brilliant. Their openers both managed centuries, a record opening partnership of 317 runs for Tom Latham and Devon Conway. Absolutely brilliant. But There was a glimmer of hope for this England side because they got 4 wickets in the final hour. That gives them some hope. But let me show you what happened today in the scorching heat at Trent Bridge, because this series was delicately poised. 1-1 it was, and you mentioned, yes, Ben Stokes coming back. He lost the toss, and my goodness me, did New Zealand make them pay. Tom Latham hitting 100 off just 149 deliveries. New Zealand's best partnership against England. And then England turned down the chance to review an LBW that would have removed Devon Conway, and that allowed him to continue some big hitting. Look at that. One of 22 fours and 3 sixes. I mentioned how good they were as a partnership, didn't I? And both openers went past 150 before the first wicket finally fell. Latham removed first by Stokes, the returning captain, for 151. Then Conway was removed by Joe Root soon after for 157. It's a great innings from both of those men, though. And then I mentioned the late wickets, 2 late on, and that might well change the course of this test. Gut Atkinson removed Ravindra, and with the final delivery of the day, Archer took the wicket of Henry Nicholls. So New Zealand closed on 361 for 4, far better position for England than at stumps. So they do have a glimmer of hope going into day 2, Matt.
I want to see Jofra getting some speed at them, don't you? And look, obviously it's a batting wicket as well, but listen, you know, when this test series started, you thought on paper England this is going to be a 3-0 whitewash. Yeah. But the Kiwis are stubborn.
Exactly that. And especially in this third and final decisive test with Gus Atkinson coming back, Ben Stokes coming back. You might have expected a bit more for England, but they're not out of it yet. Day 2
not out of it yet.
Will be absolutely brilliant, and you can watch that live from 10:15 on Sky Sports Cricket tomorrow. More sport coming up.
I could never have dreamed of going to the World Cup, and here it has, it's arrived.
Paul, let's take you back to the start. You get a call from Carlo. What's going through your head?
That you hope it's going to happen. A lot of times in football, you get a call that there's a possibility there that you could be joining a new club, a new team. And there was one period, like a year earlier, you know, is Carlo going to be leaving Real Madrid? Brazil were interested in him. It was a possibility that they could have joined together a little bit earlier. But I suppose the stars aligned at the right time. It was time for Carlo to leave Real Madrid. Brazil were looking for a new head coach. So often what happens in football is about timing. Yeah, it was a great feeling when it actually happened.
What does the role entail? Just give us an outline of what it looks like from your perspective.
A lot of the role is about watching players, so that when it comes to squad selection, that you're picking the players that are in the best form. There's a lot of players that are from Brazil that play in the Premier League. You know, there's over 20, and you know that takes a lot of time up of travelling around.
Personally, I've watched
Thank you very much indeed, Jess. Now, Scotland fans were left pretty disappointed last night after Steve Clarke's side lost to Brazil in their final Group World Cup game. The Tartan Army now face a pretty anxious wait to see if they might just sneak into the knockout stages as one of the best third-place teams. James Matthews, our own resident Scot, has more on this now.
No Scotland, no party!
In Miami, they had partied hard. The hardest part for one set of supporters would be the football.
We're not greedy. A draw will do us.
Absolutely amazing. 2-1 Scotland. We've got it in the bag.
The first time in our history going to get to the next level, and that will be like winning the World Cup to us.
This was Scotland take 3. They'd fluffed their lines in the second game against Morocco. Against Brazil, word perfect, it wasn't. They were spoon-fed a first goal in 7 minutes. Scott McKenna with the error. Vinicius Jr. with the finish. The Brazilians cruised through the first half, and the same man doubled their lead just before half-time. After the break, Scott McTominay troubled the Brazilian keeper with a header on 49 minutes, but the goal traffic was all one way. Manchester United's Matheus Cunha put his country further in front. McTominay again came closest to putting Scotland on the score sheet, but it ended 3-0. There would be no sugarcoating this result, and it leaves Scotland with 1 foot on the plane home. Scotland's fans had come to this Miami stadium in pursuit of history, progress to the knockout stages. On the night, history didn't happen here.
Disappointed, the 3 goals. You know, if it was 1-0, 2-0, maybe it's enough for us to get through, but they gave their best. Brazil's a great team.
A bit disappointed. I was hoping that we would come first so that we could go and play Germany back in Boston and have another party.
We thought if we could even just get a goal at the end, that might make all the difference when it comes to 3rd place, but we're sitting right way down the table now, so who knows?
I think it'll be the usual. Scotland will miss out by a goal. It's just be the same old story. It was a great experience. It was a party. Because you know what? No Scotland, no party! No Scotland!
It was always going to be a tall order against Brazil, a team that on the night looked like contenders for the World Cup itself. They will progress. As for Scotland, they now wait until the end of the group stages to learn their fate. It appears all but sealed. James Matthews, Sky News, in Miami.
Still a chance. Now let's take a look at the weather.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
It has been, as we've been saying, another day of record-breaking temperatures, with many parts of the country entering their 3rd or 4th day of meeting heatwave criteria. The weekend looks like bringing less hot and fresher conditions, and the change is underway. You may be glad to hear. For now, though, the red heat warning remains in place for southern parts of the country and for the southeast overnight. The amber warning, currently covering much of England and Wales, lasts until Saturday, but becomes increasingly confined to the southeast. Those yellow warnings have recently been issued for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England and the southwest, where thunderstorms are likely to bring some disruption.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
That is all from the UK tonight. Up next, live from New York with The World, it's Yalda. Thanks for watching. See you next week.